All right. Well, this is module 6. I can't actually believe it. It's been a bit of a wild ride for me, and I think probably everybody else. um, we're going to continue talking about soul today. We're going to do some exercises and refreshers. So, one of the questions that I've been asking each module for the most part is, what is your inner GPS whispering? How do you access your inner wisdom on a daily basis? And what practices do you find most useful? These are going to be in an email follow-up, and I'm going to send you after this module. So you'll have these in an email. But it's just something to sort of come back to over and over again. Okay, so remember the analogy of kind of the map, the compass, and the GPS. So the map is our mind, the compass is our body, and the GPS is our soul. So this is sort of our internal guidance system. It helps us navigate life's challenges. It helps us kind of find direction and live with greater purpose. And this is sort of where the mind, body, soul practices come in to cultivate a deeper connection to your GPS. And we'll talk more about the inner, like the everyday practices that we can use next week in the bonus module if people want to attend. It's optional. So there are things that we've done together. So we've meditated together. We've learned about kind of the mind, body, soul connection. We've created a body story. We've done breath work together. We've shared with one another. We've developed sort of this deeper self-awareness through inquiry, and we've created a community. These are all practices you can use at any one time. They're free, they're effective, and they're empowering. It doesn't require, what I love about these practices is that they don't cost any money. You don't have to take a whole spa day to go do this, right? You don't have to spend money. You don't have to spend a whole lot of time. It's really about recalibration. Anytime you get a little off track, it's just about tweaking things just a little bit. How do you get back on track? And then I want to also say, as we move through these slides, if at any point something comes up and somebody wants to touch base, please reach out. If there's stuff that comes up around mind, body, soul, or you want to have a conversation, I'm definitely here as a support. So I guess, why is it important to access our intuition? Like, what are the benefits? I know it's kind of an abstract thing, but I just want to open it up for discussion. Why is it important?
I
Is it
think
because oh, I'm sorry. Is it
no,
because you're getting you're more in touch with your feelings and what's going on inside versus ignoring or not being aware?
Mhm.
Not sure if that's it, but
Yeah, thank you, Nikki. Yeah.
and I think we talked about this, but I think sometimes or a lot of times it keeps us safe. You talked about the difference between fear and awareness. It's like, do I want to do this or not? But it can keep us safe.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, as I sort of sat with this question, there were a handful of things that came up. I thought about the ways in which I use my intuition, the different areas of my life. And what came to mind was like faster decision making. Like if you're connected to a deeper knowing and your wisdom, the well of wisdom within you, you can just access decisions and make them with more ease and more quickness. Um, you can kind of bolster or enhance your creativity. So I created this program from that creative space. I was really excited about what was going to come through me to process whatever I needed to process to give this gift. And the other aspect to this is greater self-awareness. Nikki kind of mentioned that, right? Understanding yourself, like what your own values and beliefs are, what your desires are. It does enhance your well-being and improves your well-being. It kind of gives you this sense of peace and fulfillment. I would also argue that it gives you stronger connections, not only to yourself, but to other people. And I guess one of the things that I want to share too is each of us has sort of a different flavor or a different version of how intuition comes through. It looks, sounds, and feels a little bit different. I wasn't really going to go into this, but I thought, why not? Because, it's something interesting. It's mysterious to me. I don't know the science behind it. I'll be completely honest. But there's these clair senses. A lot of you are familiar with like clairvoyance, right? But there's this idea of clair senses, and it's sort of like these psychic abilities that you can cultivate. So there's 5 different, or wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different clair senses. Clairvoyance is the one that we often hear about, right? So the ability to see information or events through mental images or visions. So it's sort of the idea of imagery that comes through. Clairaudience is the ability to hear information or messages. They might not be actually audible, but it might be it might not be, when I mean by that is it might not be an audible voice like coherent sentences, but it might be sounds. Clairsentience is the ability to feel emotions, energies, or physical sensations that are not directly related to the physical body. So we talked a little bit about that, with the gut sense and the, like, you just sort of know something. This is a different form, but claircognizance is the ability to know information intuitively without any rational information or explanation. Clairalience is the ability to smell things that are not physically present, which is wild to me. Clairgustance, which is the ability to taste flavors or sensations that are also not physically present. Again, I don't know what the science is behind this, but I know people who have these gifts. And I'm like, I don't understand it. I have no idea, but it is fantastic to me. So how do we cultivate these? We cultivate these by practicing mindfulness, meditation, what other kind of spiritual practices you have, or if you're not spiritual, that's okay too. You just, whatever feels in alignment with who you are and how you want to show up. Okay. Any other thoughts before we kind of move on to the next thing?
Okay, I thought about this last week in our discussion. It popped into my head about 4 times, and I didn't say anything. And I've thought about it all week, and you just opened a door. My father died when I was just barely 15. I had just turned 15. Totally unexpected, heart attack on the way to work. I woke up at 8:20 that morning, which is unbelievable for me at age 15. If I woke up at 11, it was early. And I didn't know anything was wrong. I just woke up. And I got up. I didn't go back to sleep. And I mulled around. And I did not learn for 3.5 hours that my father had died. And he died the minute I woke up. And I always thought that was really interesting. And then move ahead 35 years. And I had a very, oh, I can't think of a good word, dramatic mother who for many years was going to the hospital and, having this and that and whatever. And many, many times, I was 40 years old when she died. And many times she would call me and something would happen or whatever. And I would think, oh, is she going to die? And I was coming back from putting her in nursing care. We were in different states, we were far away. And no clue she was not going to be okay. And my phone rang at night. I was in a hotel halfway home. And her doctor said, basically in medical language, that my mother was going to die, which was a surprise. And I said, should I come back? He said, no, she's comfortable. We went through the whole thing. So the next morning, I woke up at 6:20 in the morning. And my first thought, which I'd had for many years, was, well, I guess she didn't die. Nobody called me, and the phone rang. And she died the minute I woke up, which I just find that interesting. And I don't know what you call that. And the reason I didn't say it last week was I didn't think it quite fit in with intuition, but it's always been interesting to me that happened. So for what it's worth.
Yeah. Thank you, Lois. That's amazing. Does anybody else have stories? Because I have a couple too. I would love to hear if anybody else has stories like that. Okay, I have one from about 3 years ago. I had met this person in my PhD. I was in a PhD for a couple of years and didn't finish. But I had met this person and we had gone out for coffee a couple of times, and we didn't know each other well, but we sort of were acquaintances and kept in touch. And it had been a couple of weeks since I spoke with her, and it was one really random Saturday. I'm working out in my garage, and I heard this text Latoya, and I was like, well, that's weird. And then the next sentence was, she's in the hospital, she's almost going to die. And I was like, whoa, wait, what? So then I texted her, and she said, yeah, I'm just coming from the emergency room, I almost died. I had this really major health issue, and it's been kind of ongoing since. But that was kind of an interesting thing that occurred. And then there's this running joke that I have with one of my best friends from growing up, who's practically my sister, that anytime she's pregnant, she's going to call me, because I'm always the one that either has a dream about it or just like an intuitive knowing. And I'll text her and be like, okay, is this baby number 3 or 6? Or she has a lot of babies. But anyway, just kind of a funny thing. But okay, so we are actually going to circle back to the very first exercise we did in module 1, because I would love to know if there's any changes that have been made. So this is the activity we did, where we're going to go through our mind, our body, and our soul as it relates to a story in your head or a situation you're grappling with or struggling with. So it might be things like, I can't let go of a previous relationship, or I'm sick of being sick, or if I move on, I don't know who I am, or I feel like I have no control over my life. So think about a thought that comes up. What's the thought that comes up regularly, or the thought that you're struggling with currently? And once you have it, we're going to go through the same kinds of questions. And if people are interested, I'm happy to kind of go through it with you if you want. So, is this thought true? Can you absolutely know that it's true? And then the third question, how do you react and what happens when you believe this thought? And then who would you be without this thought? Does anybody need or want examples? Okay. So, I want you to just, if you can, kind of close your eyes and breathe. Or if you don't want to close your eyes, you're welcome to just avert your gaze wherever it feels comfortable. And then kind of repeat this thought over and over again. And feel that thought kind of sink into your body. Just notice what it feels like in your chest and in your stomach, maybe in your throat. Just kind of notice. Check in with your body. What are sensations that you're experiencing? What's the quality, the texture, the temperature? And then keep breathing into that thought. What's getting stirred up? What's arising? And if you labeled the embodiment of this thought, what would it be? Is it cold or prickly or constricted? Maybe warm or hot? And if you don't really have any sensations or can't access them, what about a color or a shape? All right, when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. So there's some continual questions to ask about this thought, right? So where did it originate? Can you pinpoint where it originated? Is it even yours? Is it a family member's? Is it a family member storyline that you have passed on or they have passed on to you? And is this a deep sense of knowing or is this a fear-based thought?
Is there any other choices on that one?
with regard to
Like deep sense of knowing.
versus fear.
And it's not fear for me, but a deep sense of knowing. I know it's probably not true, but it's what I think. And I
Mhm,
strongly think that, but it's from ego.
mhm.
So what would you call that? Deep sense of ego?
Mm. Well, I would kind of wonder what the sensation is around the knowing. Does it feel protective?
To me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, probably.
Mm-hmm. So maybe it's fear.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then is this thought benefiting me, or is it benefiting my family or society?
Do you think knowing where the thought came from, if it's a negative thought, is important in chasing it away? Understanding why it started and why you tend to believe it, even if you don't believe it, you believe it?
I think it can be helpful. It's information, but I don't think it's imperative because not always do we have access to the origin. Yeah. So even though it may be uncomfortable, will I allow myself to think a different thought and explore that? Right. So, you had your original thought, we're kind of working through it. Could you open yourself to a different way of thinking? Is it possible to have a different thought? Because if we can explore that, is it possible, then there's a little bit of room. And it's possible that when you start thinking about other thoughts to replace that one, fear might come up, right? If I embody this thought, that like what's going to happen to me? And then some follow-up questions might be, what would my soul say to those fears? What would the wiser part of me say to those fears? Okay, so we're going to do this one more time because we're going to flip the thought around. So does anybody want to volunteer and give me their thought, their original thought?
I mean, I will if no one wants to, but I want to give somebody else a chance to talk.
Go for it, and then we'll make room for others if they're interested.
Okay. So my thought was he should be doing the work.
He should be doing the work. Okay. So is it true?
No, probably not. I sure think so.
Okay. So then the second question is, can we absolutely know it's true? So no.
No.
Mhm. How do you react? Like what happens when you believe this thought?
Honestly, my ego thinks I'm better than him.
Mhm. Yeah. And who would you be without this thought?
Maybe kind of lost.
Okay. Okay. And then when you tapped into kind of your body, the senses, what did you notice anything that bubbled up?
Mm, No, not too much. No.
Okay. Okay. And then you have any idea where the thought came from?
No, I think something I made up. Like, I think it goes deeper into, then that way I'm better than him, or I think I'm better than him.
Mhm.
And that goes deeper into other stuff.
Yep.
So if I keep digging, I can see that where that's coming from. I see that.
Yes.
Or how to change it because I believe it so deeply.
Yep. Well, we're going to try and flip it around.
Okay.
We'll see what happens. Okay, so so he should be doing the work. He shouldn't be doing the work, or he isn't doing the work. Is it true?
Um, no, he
Okay.
should, like, he should be doing what he wants to do. He
Okay.
shouldn't or should. He should or shouldn't. He just should be doing what he wants to.
Okay. Can you absolutely know that that's true?
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. That's why this gets really tricky because it's like, is that right? Okay. Yeah, I mean, yes, because it's open, right? We can know it's true because he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
He's his own person.
Yes.
Okay, so then how do you react, or what happens to you when you believe this thought?
That he's his own person. Um, wow, that's a tough one. I'm not doing very good at this example. I usually can nail these, but this one I'm not. Hmm. Like maybe out of control.
Okay. And who would you be without that thought?
Just more calm, less noise, not worrying about somebody else. I'd be just fine.
Mhm. Yeah, so is the out of control something that needs to be attended to on your end? Because the who would you be without this thought sounds like it's a bit of a relief. Is that true?
Yeah, that'd be really great. I mean, not to be worrying about what he should be doing.
Yeah, right. So then to go even deeper into that, so who would you be without this thought? Say that again. Who would you be without this thought?
I would just be me, not like more relaxed, more not worrying about what he's doing. I'd be just fine on my own,
Mhm.
not thinking about it.
Yeah. So then again, from like a somatic perspective, a body perspective, who would I be without this thought? And then sensing into that, I would be more relaxed. I'd be calmer. So then where does relaxation happen in your body when you think about it? Is it that your shoulders kind of drop? Is it that your throat opens up?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying this is a power suggestion, but you're saying yes. Is there
No,
more?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay,
My ego can rest, right? Because I just think he's dumb. because he
Yeah.
doesn't. I mean, I don't mean to be silly. I mean, I know this is the real stuff, but I do. My brain goes there.
Mhm.
So I just think, well, you shouldn't have to do all that. Like, you could rest.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the juice right there, is like sitting in and sitting with I could relax. Huh. And then what would it be like to relax? What would it be like to embody this? What would it be like to move from this place? Because that to me sounds like a wiser place. So does that make sense for people? It's a little, I mean, it's kind of an example of how you can flip around the thought and then sense into it from a body level. And then by going into it through your body, you access your intuition. And Nicole, I love actually that you struggled a little bit to figure it out, because that's part of this process. Like it's because it's so, our brains are so hardwired to go into the pattern and the habit of the neural pathway, to just think the thought automatically, and then for our bodies to respond. It's just so easy. It happens in a split second, which is why this process is so arduous, because then it's like, I actually don't even know what a different thought would be. And I also don't even know how I would feel.
So how do you go about changing that, like, to that different thought, just by going through those questions and sitting in it?
So, yes, I always try to think of, so the limiting beliefs, in module 1, there's a whole bunch of sentences in each category, right? Where it's job and career, relationships, health, right? There's these different categories. You can kind of pick and choose which ones sort of resonate, write the sentence and then try to flip it. So if it's, I'm always broke. Well, is that really true? Is it always that you're broke? And then move from there.
Okay.
Yeah, it takes time and a lot of practice. Yeah.
What can I go? Can I say something?
Yeah,
Okay.
go.
Um, I feel silly saying this out loud, but if I were to get rid of my thought, it feels unsafe. Like it feels like my thought is of every man out there is easily swayed by other women or this or that, right? And so it feels like if I stopped thinking that and believed that they were good, then I'm going to miss something. So even when I get through that, I'm like, I want to hold on to it tight, even if I know that there's some evidence. Sorry, my toddler's in the background. I've got a sound machine on. Even if I've got some evidence that there are good men still, but then I'm like, well, all the good men are taken, and
Mhm.
ugh.
Mhm.
So how do you make yourself feel okay with getting rid of that thought? Because it doesn't feel
Yeah.
cozy.
Yeah. So, such a good question. And I'm so glad you brought it up, because that is what I love this. That is what we talked
You're welcome.
about. You're great. So that's what we talked about in module 3 and 4. So the window of tolerance, right? We have this window, and within the window, we can kind of navigate through life's daily stressors, right? It feels okay. If we're above the window, we're in hyper arousal. Below the window is hypo arousal. Our nervous systems can really only function for extended periods of time within the window. If we're above, we're anxious, and our bodies are vibrating at a level we can't sustain. underneath that, the hypoarousal, usually what happens is you're in too much fight or flight, and then you go all the way down to shut down and numbness. So it's a little bit more freeze. So it might be that you're not ready or willing to let go of the thought, and that's okay. It's okay.
Maybe start with a smaller thought. That's not
Maybe.
so, that doesn't feel so catastrophic.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I'm all about, anytime you do this work, I am all about doing it low and slow, because our nervous systems can't necessarily handle big blows to making lasting change.
Yeah.
It has to be in the small micro moments. Because, I mean, I've worked with people with trauma backgrounds since the beginning of my career, and I've also been around a whole lot of people that have experienced trauma. It's not something that you just force someone to get through. It's very gradual. It's very slow.
It's kind of a debilitating thought sometimes though, because I worry about everyone.
Mhm.
I worry about my friends if they have an argument with their husband, and I'm like, oh no, he's gonna cheat on her, he's gonna leave her, I'm not gonna know what to say to her. And so it's not even just for my own safety, it's just like, what if all the time. So yeah, maybe I'll start with I'm always broke instead. I'll go
Yeah.
I'll go with that one instead. Mm,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. So I'm gonna give myself permission to just not go there for right now.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
I love that. Cool.
Bethany, do you think it would be helpful if we use some of Byron Katie's worksheets?
Oh, potentially. Yeah, absolutely.
I remember using them umpteen years ago when I first was introduced to her work, and I haven't used them in a very long time. So just now, when you were saying about struggling getting through those, and then listening to Hillary's question, I just thought, because it's all written out there and you could just really read it word for word, and then you get the lines to fill out the question, and then you go to the next one. I just
Yep.
wanted to be helpful.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that going through some of her work is incredible. And then moving into what it looks like and what it means for your body, because we store and hold information in our bodies, right? Sometimes we're ready to face things, sometimes we're just not. So it's like, okay, there's no right or wrong way to do this. Because at the end of the day, we always are reaching for safety, right? Safety has to be number one. And you have to feel safe enough in your body to take little risks here and there. And I talk about pendulation or titration. It's just like very gently nudging yourself out of your comfort zone just a little bit into the growth zone. And then if, exploring that and then coming back to the comfort zone and then going into the growth zone and then coming back into comfort zone, right? So that you have some semblance of control in the process. Yeah. All right, we're gonna kind of go to the next slide. So this is just a reiteration of what we were kind of talking about. So any kind of quote unquote progress, if you want to call it that, looks very different for each one of us. And it is not always in forward motion. It's not always in motion. Sometimes it's sideways and upside down, and it just feels very disorienting. So when we talk about from stress to strength, reclaiming your mind, body, soul connection, spending time in the mind, body, soul, it's a process. And you will recycle the similar behaviors and similar thoughts over and over again. There's nothing wrong with you. It just means you're human trying to work through more lasting change, right? So I was going to go into a whole bunch of other things about this technique that I'm learning, emotional freedom technique, but we're kind of running out of time. Essentially, what the idea behind the emotional freedom technique is, it's to identify that negative emotions cause disruption in your energy body, right? So there's these like tapping points. Like you usually start on the side of the hand, and then you go to the eyebrow and the side of the eye and underneath the eye, and you just touch these points while kind of repeating a bit of like a mantra. You identify what your the block is, and then you kind of work through it using those points. So we just talked a little bit about, mapping your intention and nurturing your depth. We talked about being open to discerning your knowing. We kind of talked about, stillness. Stillness is kind of offers us that universal life force energy. So, I maybe talked a little bit about this in the body modules, but slowing our minds and bodies down is really the only way to access our intuition. Because if we continually perpetuate and the cycle of chronic stress and we're on the hamster wheel, accessing your intuition is going to be more difficult. So, I mean, I completely admit that I'm very biased when it comes to personal growth and development. I honestly do believe that some of the work that we do can really help heal our relationships. It can help heal our world. I've talked with some of you about the idea of pain being dirty pain or clean pain, right? So the idea being that we may have experienced relationships in our past that were unkind or neglectful or abusive or tumultuous, and that creates dirty pain, meaning whatever cycle that mom and dad went through or grandparents or whomever, and then they dump it on us, it can be an opportunity for us to clean up the pain so that we don't recycle the tumultuous nature of the relationship or the neglect or the abuse onto either our children or relationships that we care about. So clean pain, that is what this process is. It's sort of turning that pain into clean pain. So I love this quote by Rumi. The desire to know your own soul will end all other desires. So I guess a question I would have for you would be, how do you want to reclaim your mind, body, soul connection? What does that look like? What does the next steps look like for you in your journey? Mm-hmm.